welcome back to Steeped in Cinema, the podcast where we explore film through flavor, pairing cinematic deep dive discussions with the perfect cup of tea. I am your host, Brett Voyna, and I am today joined once again by my lovely wife, Megan Voyna. Hello, Megan.
Hello.
Today, we are going to be sinking our teeth into something decadent, something dark, hypnotic, and deeply unsettling. We're going to be talking about Robert Eggers' Nosferatu remake of 2024. This is a film that retells a classic vampire tale, but instead of giving us, the candlelight dinners in red velvet, we are given something more seductive and primal. Now, to complement our conversation today, we have a deliciously fitting tea pairing. This is the Berry Sangeria blend from Ohio Tea Company. And speaking of Ohio Tea Company, real quick, just want to give a huge thank you and shout out to Ohio Tea Company for partly sponsoring this episode of Steeped in Cinema. If you are looking for high quality loose leaf tea, they've got honestly one of the best selections that I've ever seen. So if you are in the Canton, Ohio area, please stop by their shop at 5154 Fulton Drive, or you can check them out online at www.ohiotco.com, and I will drop links to that down in the description of this episode. So now this berry sangria is a mixture of elderberries, rose hips, hibiscus, raspberries, and sour cherries. And guys, when this brews up, we are looking at a very deep red, blood red color that has a very odd aroma. And let's take a little sippy sip here. Right, so we've got, so it starts off kind of sweet and then finishes with a little tarty sharpness that kind of bites you right in the throat, much like Count Orlock himself. Steep your tea, dim the lights, and let us talk about the seduction of fear. So, my friends, horror and desire have always been strange bedfellows, if you will. Fear and attraction work eerily close to in similar ways. Both of these emotions will send chills and shivers and pricklies down the skin, and sometimes they can even both keep us transfixed on things that we normally wouldn't be. The sensation, the thrill of being afraid, of standing at the edge of something very dangerous, is a very primal sensation. And few creatures embody that as well and as perfectly as the vampire.
I've always been drawn to, Dracula and vampire lore and things of that nature. When you talk about horror movies and horror icons and all that good stuff, that's always been one of my favorites, my go-tos. Just because I enjoy the story behind him. I enjoy just kind of the ways in which vampires are portrayed. Wasn't exactly what I was expecting, but that was okay.
You had never seen the original F.W. Murnau version of Nosferatu, so this was more or less your sort of introductory experience into the character.
Correct. I do intend to go back and watch the original Nosferatu. I always have. I just never have gotten there yet. This was kind of my first look into Nosferatu versus, your typical Dracula movies and things like that. And I know it's two different sides of the coin.
Right. So just to anybody who's maybe coming into the story new to Nosferatu, Nosferatu and Dracula are all based on the same book from Bram Stoker. But when Murnau was getting rights to make the film, he could not get the full permission to use Dracula, the name and everything. So he essentially made the story, but just changed the names of all the characters and changed a couple of elements of the plot. And that's how we ended up with Nosferatu. But the main difference between the two characters is that, Orlock he's no Lestat. He's no Dracula. He is not draped in velvet and flowing locks of golden or dark hair. He is not a physically seductive entity. But yet, at the same time, he has a very seductive presence to him, to Ellen, who is our, the Mina character, but her name is Ellen in this story. He does not appear to her in any sort of way as in Bram Stoker's version, where he initially reveals himself to her as the Prince Vlad, and he's handsome and tall and dark and draped in his garments and everything. And he's very handsome and pretty and alluring. Nosferatu does not do this. He reveals himself as is in her visions and everything as a grotesque monster, and yet she still finds herself seduced by him. And I think that's what we're kind of focusing on here, is that even though he is not a pretty, his essence and his presence is still very, very seductive, I think. She doesn't recoil from him. Not really. She's afraid of him, yes. She's not really just a victim. She is a participant in this dance that they have. What are your thoughts there? She's not running, even though she kind of thinks that she should. So is there like a psychological aspect of going on as to, she knows this is dangerous, she knows this is wrong, she has her husband, but yet she still has this undeniable desire for this creature that's in her head?
Yes, well, I think it is very much a psychological thing with her, because as we kind of see in the start of the film, this is something that she's kind of like grappled with a majority of her life. So it's not just like this is just starting, and she's, and it goes so far as to, of course, back in those days, anytime a woman showed any kind of an illness, physical, mental, or otherwise, it was always hysterics, and it was always mental, and it was always so you get the sense that she's had these issues, these visions, these things, for a good portion of her life, and those around her can't quite understand, what's happening to her, or what she's going through, or they just kind of keep dismissing it a bit. And so I think because of that, because she has gotten dismissed a lot with what she's been dealing with, not only by just friends and others around her, but her husband as well. He's very preoccupied with his work. He loves her, of course, and they have tiny little romantic moments here and there, but ultimately he's more focused on what he needs to go out and do rather than being there to support her and love her and be with her. And so I think that kind of plays into it. Whatever these visions are that she's having of this creature, it doesn't bother her that it's a creature, because it's someone or something that's paying attention to her, kind of, and showing an interest in her, no matter what. And so I think it's almost a comfort to her.
So she maybe on some level wants to be consumed by this entity. This version of the vampire is less about, as we were saying earlier, is less about romance and whining and dining, and this is more about a primal physical seduction, that she is longing for physical connection, and this creature is giving her this lustful vibe, and she kind of wants it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think makes vampires really so fascinating is it not that they are not just monsters, really, that they are sort of like reflections, if you will, of our own hidden desires, maybe. So let's talk briefly now then about the role of women, since you mentioned how she's feeling like, like she, especially in this era, that she's feeling neglected and that, she has like no one to pay attention to her. Vampires have always been about sex, power, submission. They don't just kill, they consume, they take. But they take intimately. Their victims surrender to them, laced with something both terrifying and seductive. The best vampire stories are not just about the monster, they're about the people who let them in. And Ellen is not your typical horror victim. She's not screaming, she's not running, she's not being chased by something, she's not being clawed at the walls trying to escape. She's watching. She's waiting in anticipation for this demon to come to her, and maybe she is considering stepping into that abyss, anticipating its arrival. And which makes Nosferatu so different from traditional vampire romances is in so many versions of Dracula, the female leads are seduced under a romanticized spell. Mina and the others, they're the attraction of the castle and the nobility of him and his pretty outfits and his long hair and he's handsome and he's attractive and all kinds of ways. And Orlock is not. He arrives as a monster, as a creature, and yet she still is there to meet his gaze head on. She does not recoil, but leans into that.
It just makes you wonder how much was going on in her mind to make it so that she not repulsed by this creature that, as we keep saying creature, quite literally, corpse-like. He's not, there's not anything really about him that, is attractive at all.
His skin's all decayed.
Yeah, he's just, it's just very odd, he's got the kind of long spindly fingers and he's just very odd looking.
He's a monster.
But to her, that it's almost like she doesn't see that. And to that point, maybe that's a whole other underlying theme. Maybe it's more what he is able to give her as far as her, her mental capacity and her, how she is longing for that connection with someone or something.
Maybe the feeling of being wanted.
Correct, yeah. How much are you going to look for that, or how far are you going to go to find that? Even when there are times when it does, scare you, when it does, make you fearful, when you start to know, she starts to notice that this is, it's killing her friends and it's, it's hurting her husband and it's, but she's still drawn to him. So there's still something that he can offer her that nobody else in her life can.
And I think that's sort of the horror of this particular story, is that ability to lose control of ourselves so completely into that feeling of desire and the feeling of being wanted. And that's another twist of the story, is that Orlock's obsession for Ellen, although physical and primal, is so powerful and so strong that even though he is aware that the sun is rising and he needs to leave, he stays with her because he just can't stop himself. And that is another, I think, fear, is that how much of ourselves are we letting to lose control to the point where it destroys us, and we knowingly let it destroy us. I think that is sort of what makes this tea, the berry sangria, such a perfect match for this kind of tension, because it is lush and rich and it's blood-like and it's sweet and it draws you in and it makes you feel comfortable and cozy, but then right at the end there, it bites you right in the neck with that sour cherry hint of something, lure you in, but not letting you get too comfortable, much like Count Orlock and much like Ellen and much like desire itself. I'm not generally a huge fan of hibiscus tea altogether, but I have to say, the more I'm drinking this, it's growing on me. I really enjoy it. It's not overly strong in the hibiscus flavor.
I agree. At first it was a little bit more of a, I don't want to necessarily say bitter taste than I like, but you know, it wasn't as sweet as I was anticipating, but it was like the more I drank it, the sweetness came through. And it's kind of one of those ones that, you know, the more you drink it, the more you like it and the more you want, which is very much in the theme of Dracula. And
it's a slow seduction of a
right.
tea. Yeah. Very sexy. All right. All right, friends, we are going to take a break from all the sexy chat of vampires and seduction. We're going to play a little trivia game. Megan, are you ready for another round of Steeped in Cinema Trivia?
Yes, of course.
All right, friends, today we are going to be, of course, we are talking about vampires, Dracula, Nosferatu, two characters of the same coin, but wildly different. So, of course, our trivia today is going to be focused on Nosferatu, Dracula, and vampires. So here we go. Megan, question number 1 for you is, what was the original name of Count Orlock before copyright issues forced director F.W. Murnau to change it? Question number 2. Who played the first cinematic version of Count Dracula in a legally authorized film? Question number 3. What actor played Nosferatu in Werner Herzog's 1979 remake? Question number 4. Bill Skarsgård plays Count Orlock in the 2024 remake of Nosferatu. Name one of the 2 other actors who were originally considered for the role before Bill Skarsgård was cast. And question number 5. What famous rock musician starred as Dracula in the 1979 comedy Love at First Bite? All right, Megan, she is looking really upset right now. But let's see how she did, and let's see how you did at home, everybody. Here we go. Let's go back. Question number 1. What was the original name of Count Orlock before copyright issues forced Murnau to change it?
I'm going to be completely honest. I am floored by this trivia because I don't know that I know any of this. I can't even give you a guess.
The original name of the Count Orlock before it was changed by Murnau was Count Dracula.
That just seemed too easy.
Count Dracula, yeah. Question number 2. Who played the first cinematic version of Count Dracula in a legally authorized film? Any guesses?
Literally no.
The answer is Bela Lugosi in 1931's Dracula. Bela Lugosi. Number 3, what actor played Nosferatu in Werner Herzog's 1979 remake of the film? Do you have any ideas on that one?
I do not. As I said before, I have not seen a Nosferatu story in full, so I couldn't answer that one.
It is Klaus Kinski was the actor who played Nosferatu. All right, question number 4. Bill Skarsgård is the actor who plays Count Orlock in the 2024 version of Nosferatu. Can you name one of the other 2 actors who were originally considered for the role before Bill Skarsgård was cast?
No. Because who other than Bill Sakrsgard could play it? So I couldn't even think of anybody that might have been up for it.
Actually, Bill Skarsgård was being originally considered for the role of Thomas in the film before he was cast as Orlock, and they were originally looking at either Willem Dafoe or Daniel Day-Lewis. I could actually see either because, as we all know, Willem Dafoe, who is also in the film as the Van Helsing character, but he played Max Schreck in the 2000 or 2001 film Shadows of the Vampire, which was sort of like an unofficial behind-the-scenes making of Nosferatu. Finally, what famous rock musician starred as Dracula in the 1979 comedy Love at First Bite?
No, that was a thing. I am failing today at the trivia.
It's all right. It's all right. We're all here about learning too. The answer is George Hamilton played Dracula in the 1979 comedy Love at First Bite. Well, thanks so much for playing this trivia game with us, Megan. Hey, we didn't get any of the questions, but I hope we have learned something about Dracula from the past. All right, guys, so we're going to jump into one more little discussion here before we end today. The real horror of Nosferatu is that it understands that desire is not always beautiful. It isn't always soft. It isn't always romantic or safe. Sometimes, desire can be dark, uncomfortable, and something we might not even really want to admit to ourselves. So Ellen's story in this is not about a woman stalked by a monster. It's about surrender, about what it means to let go of safety, to embrace the unknown, to step willingly into the arms of something that should repulse you, but yet does not. And that is what makes the film so damn unsettling, because on some level, we understand it. Desire and fear are two sides of the same coin. One makes you want to run, the other makes you want to stay. And the vampire myth, in all of its incarnations, has always existed in that liminal space, crossing boundaries between life and death, control and submission, and fear and pleasure. And I think that's why we keep returning to these stories, because we recognize ourselves in them. Something primal, grotesque, and something we still can't look away from. Because here's the truth, guys. We all have an Orlock in us. We may not have talons and sunken eyes, but he's there. Something lurking in our own desires, waiting to see if we will run or if we will let ourselves be consumed by it.
I do agree with that. I think there is some level of, I don't know if enjoyment is the right word, but maybe enjoyment in that feeling of fear. I mean, I think that's probably, those of us that are horror fans and, enjoy watching the movies and going to the haunted houses and, putting ourselves into those situations in one way or another. I mean, I think that's why we do it.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. It's weird to want to be scared. It's weird to want to feel that fear and insecurity. But there's something about it that, brings up that whole, other level of, this is dangerous, but I'm okay with that. And I like that. And I don't know exactly why. I can't explain it. It's just a weird human psyche.
That eroticism and danger can be on the same level, the same coin. It's so strange that your body can be turned on by danger.
Right. Exactly.
How does that work?
Right. This feels scary. This feels wrong. But I'm not totally opposed to it. I've seen TikToks where women are, talking about the, the originals, Billy Loomis, and talking about how, they wouldn't necessarily run from him and that kind of thing. And it's like, yeah, why is that though? You do get drawn to him. I am, Scream was one of my favorite franchises. And, I would be in that realm. There's just something about him that's alluring. It's like the, modern Dracula kind of a thing.
Right.
It's like, there's just something about him that's like, yeah, no, he's not a good guy, but
yeah, it just seemed that there's something about that the confidence of that, of being desired so intensely, I think is what it is. When you watch Nosferatu in this version, you know, in Dracula, when Harker shows the picture of Mina to Dracula, he is reminded of a past love of Elizabeth and of his whole personal story. He's drawn back into that love he had for her. In Nosferatu, there is no past connection between Orlock and Ellen, really. His first encounter with her is the picture he sees, and it is a physical, pure, primal desire on Orlock. He doesn't have a past relationship that he's remembering. He just wants her. And I think that there is something about that feeling of just being so passionately, just so intensely desired by something or someone, to where I guess you don't care if it's going to hurt you, or you don't care if it's going to be a monster. That feeling of being wanted so badly is over intoxicating. It's almost crippling if you don't have control of yourself. Which is why the berry sangria fits so well with this film. That sweetness lulls you in. The rich fruitiness feels indulgent and decadent and fancy and romanticized. But then there's that bite, that sharpness at the end that lingers on your tongue and in the back of your throat. It's temptation with a cost. It's indulgence with a warning. It's Orlock in a cup.
That's weird.
Well, friends, this was an exploration of our most primal fears, the things that we long for, even when we know we shouldn't. Nosferatu is about submission, temptation, and the dangerous thrills of stepping into the unknown. Orlock is not just a vampire, but he is a monstrous presence. But the way that Ellen meets it, welcomes it, and maybe even wants it, makes it terrifying in that sense. Because how often do we find ourselves drawn to things that we know will destroy us?
You know, I makes me want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into the Nosferatu story and, you know, kind of go back to the original and just kind of, you know, follow that. I'm so used to the usual vampire and Dracula stories. I do kind of want to follow this one a little bit more and learn about that one a little bit more, because it's a whole different aspect of it. So, good movie, thought-provoking, and I enjoyed it.
Sexy.
Yes.
Friends, if this conversation got you thinking, I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of Egger's take on Nosferatu, or the original? Did this film leave you haunted the way it did us? Did it unsettle you, seduce you even? Let me know in the comments, or follow us on social media. We have our new Steeped in Cinema Facebook group, which I will also leave a link to down in the description. So join us on Facebook for some photos of our tea. You can see what it looks like. And leave us some comments on the episode, or maybe even suggest some teas or future discussion topics in an upcoming episode. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure that you subscribe, leave a review or a comment anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And of course, a huge thanks again to Ohio Tea Company for sponsoring in part today's episode. The Berry Sangria blend was the perfect companion for this conversation. Sweet at first, but with a bite of something darker. Until next time, my friends, keep steeping your mind in great cinema. Cheers.